Hi kids, Purple Jenny here. I'll be reading another story to you tonight from my full color fairy tale book. This story is called Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. Look at how much there is to read. I'll show you the pictures. Now it's almost Greeny's bedtime, but this is an adventure story. So he might not be able to go right to sleep to this story. He might be thinking about all of the treasure. Now this story will take you to a different time long ago and to a different place. Now look at the thieves. Those thieves look kind of scary to me. All right, now that's all the pictures. And I'll hold the book up once I get to that page. All right. Let's go. Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. There lived in Baghdad in the days of the great Caliph Harun al-Rashid a certain merchant by the name of Ali Baba. For a merchant, Ali Baba was a poor man. He only had one donkey called Abdullah and one slave girl, Yasmin. Yasmin was the bane of his life. If he ordered her to do this, she did that. If he ordered her to do that, Yasmin always did the other. Yasmin, Yasmin, cried Ali Baba. I ordered you to fill Abdullah's saddle packs with apricots. What did you do? You stuffed them with dates. You know as well as I do there are date palms all over the place and very few apricot trees. You'll be the ruin of me, girl. You don't listen to the talk of the bazaar, said Yasmin. I do. Everyone's saying that the date palms have been smitten, doubtless by the will of Allah, with a mysterious disease which makes the dates wither. Equally by the will of Allah, this year there is a more abundant crop of apricots than even the oldest man in Baghdad can remember. In a corner of your miserable warehouse I found 3 sacks of dates. I'll make your fortune, Ali, in spite of yourself. Leave it to me. Secretly delighted by her cleverness, he said, grumbling, What's the use of a fortune? Were I as rich as in the fact I'm poor, the 40 thieves would soon plunder me. Be off with you, replied Yasmin. I've more wits in my little finger than the 40 thieves have in their 40 thick skulls. So Ali Baba set forth from the Damascus gate, walking beside his donkey. They went into the hills. Half an hour before noon, in a narrow gorge of mountains, Ali sought the shade of a great cedar tree. He tied Abdullah to a low branch, and man and beast settled down to pass the hour of midday heat. Ali dozed off to sleep. This picture's from a different story. Sorry. He was awakened by the sound of trampling feet and men shouting to one another. 40 mules, each loaded with an enormous oil jar, went by, each mule led by a man armed to the teeth. The 40 thieves, Ali whispered to himself in terror. When the leading mule came to a boulder at the foot of a steep hill, the leader yelled, Open sesame! At once the boulder rolled aside, and the whole train of men, mules, and oil jars filed into a huge cave which appeared in the mountainside. Ali was too terrified to move. In half an hour the 40 thieves reappeared, but now the oil jars had disappeared, and each thief was riding one of the mules. The clatter of their hooves sent small stones rolling down the hillside. As the last mule appeared, its rider shouted, Close sesame! The boulder rolled back into place. Ali lay still until the last sound had died away. Then he plucked up his courage and called, Open sesame! With a grinding sound, the boulder rolled from the mouth of the cave, and Ali went cautiously in. He found himself surrounded by heaps of silks and piles of gold, silver, and jewels, the loot of years of robbing and plunder. The 40 oil jars made a hollow sound when Ali wrapped them. Hastily, he helped himself to handfuls of jewels and fled. As he left, he called over his shoulder, "Close sesame!" as he had seen the last thief do. The rock rolled obediently back into place. Ali untethered Abdullah and returned to Baghdad. He told his story to Yasmin. "I don't believe it," she cried. But when Ali showed her the handful of jewels he had brought back, she realized that he had indeed made an important discovery. "Give them to me," she said. "I will go and sell them in the street of the jewel dealers in the bazaar. I can get a far better price for them than you can. If anyone asks me where I got them, I'll tell them that they were given to me by my friend, the Caliph's head slave girl." With part of the money, Yasmin bought 2 fine horses, and next day she and Ali Baba rode to the cave of the robbers. The rock rolled back at Ali's command, and the two explored by the light of a pinewood torch. Yasmin was in the 7th heaven, trying on first one jeweled bracelet, then another. "Hurry up," urged Ali. "Make up your mind which you want." "This," she said. "No, that. No, I'll have the other." Suddenly, they both heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. "Hide! Hide!" cried Ali. They managed to crouch behind some huge bales of silks just in time. In rode the 40 thieves. "Now, brothers," cried their leader, "the time is near when we can double our treasure and double it again. We'll raid the treasure house of the Caliph himself. This is the plan. In 3 days' time, it will be the dark of the moon. We'll enter Baghdad in broad daylight, disguised as honest merchants. Each of us will lead 1 mule. Each mule will be loaded with 1 oil jar. The jars will be empty, but the guards won't know that. Roared the others. "I've bribed the head porter," continued their leader. "He'll open the courtyard gate and let us in. We'll unload the empty oil jars, and we'll stable the mules in the Caliph's own stables. Then each of us will hide in an oil jar. At midnight, the head porter will unlock the door of the Caliph's treasure house. And then, laughing, the 40 thieves filed out of the cave on their mules. The leader shouted, "Close sesame!" The rock rolled back, leaving the cave in darkness. Yasmin and Ali waited a long time. Then Ali commanded the rock to open. They untethered the horses from the branches of the cedar where they had left them hidden, shouted, "Close sesame!" and rode back to Baghdad. "Leave the rest to me," cried Yasmin. On the day when the moon would be dark, Yasmin told her story to the Caliph's head slave girl, who told the tale to the Caliph. He stroked his beard. "You have done well, slave girl. I will prepare a fine reception for these 40 thieves." In the narrow, teeming streets of Baghdad, few people took any notice of so ordinary a sight as a train of 40 mules loaded with oil jars. The supposed merchants were admitted to the forecourt of the palace by the keeper of the gate without any difficulty, and the 40 thieves were safely hidden in their jars long before the thin crescent of the moon began to sink. They knew they had a long time to wait before midnight came. They kept very quiet. In the Caliph's enormous kitchen, however, all was bustle and activity. Instead of preparing a meal, the coals were bringing 40 great iron cauldrons of oil to boiling point. Then each cauldron was carried into the courtyard by 2 of the Caliph's fighting men. On a balcony overlooking the courtyard, Yasmin and Ali Baba watched silently with the Caliph. Just before midnight, torches flared to light all around the courtyard, and a cauldron of boiling oil was tipped suddenly. into each jar by the fighting men. The end of the 40 thieves, though painful, was quick. Ali Baba was loaded by the Caliph with great riches. He became the greatest and most important of all the merchants of Baghdad and lived happily ever after with the clever slave girl whom he freed and married. What became of the treasure of the 40 thieves? The Caliph rode out to the secret cave and pronounced the magic words, "Open sesame!" And if you want to know what happened to the treasure then, why, you must ask the Caliph about that. Now that was kind of scary at the end. Look at all those bad guys. They were going to rob the guy. But yeah, that's just how stories were back then. They were kind of scary. But I still love these old stories. I think it's great that we can read books that kids these days don't have because they're just not in the libraries anymore. Well, thank you so much for reading this with me. And Greenie is about to go to sleep. So say good night to my bird. Say good night. Good night, kids. Bye.